Celebrating a Fool's Day is just a waste of time. My mother-in-law spat out. Was she saying my daughter is a fool, and that celebrating such a fool is a waste? It's unbelievable, especially since she planned her own birthday party. So, the birthday party today wasn't meant to be a joint celebration with my daughter from her perspective, but rather, she wanted it to be all about celebrating her own birthday from the start. When I looked at my husband, I could see his body trembling slightly. He must be seething with anger, I thought as I looked at his face. But then, my husband did something that made me doubt my eyes. Out of the blue, he smiled and agreed with my mother-in-law's words. Indeed. I was shocked by his words and behavior. Why wouldn't he say anything back after being insulted like that? Far from retaliating, he even agreed with my mother-in-law. I couldn't help but feel suspicious of my husband. However, what my husband did next almost made me burst out laughing. My name is Hannah. I'm a 30-year-old stay-at-home mom. 3 years ago, a coworker 2 years my senior, whom I'll call Tom, confessed his feelings for me, and we started dating. Tom, who worked in the same department, was kind and reliable. Whenever I made a mistake, he was quick to cover for me, and when he praised me, he always did so specifically. I was attracted to him, but since he was also incredibly popular among the female staff at our company, I had almost given up on him. So, when he confessed, I was over the moon. As we continued dating, I realized that Tom wasn't just kind and reliable, he was also incredibly sincere. Moreover, he surprised me by saying he had liked me since he joined the company, which filled me with joy and made me appreciate his loyalty even more. After 3 years of dating, as I started to think about marriage, I found out I was pregnant with Tom's baby. When I nervously told him about the pregnancy, he hugged me and said, "Having a baby doesn't mean we have to get married. I've wanted to marry you from the start. I plan to love you and our baby with all my heart. So, will you let me propose to you again?" Later, he gave me a ring with the words, "Will you marry me?" I was moved to tears by his sincerity and kindness. I'm looking forward to our future together. I thought about how happy the three of us would be. We decided to get married and immediately went to greet both families. My parents were surprised that we were already expecting a child but said, if Tom's the father, we're relieved, and we're looking forward to meeting the baby, happy about both the marriage and the pregnancy. Next, we have to greet Tom's parents. Oh, yeah, that's right. I thought I saw a shadow cross his face, but I didn't dwell on it, thinking it was natural to be nervous about announcing our marriage and pregnancy. Although Tom had visited my parents' home several times, this was my first visit to his. When we arrived to greet his parents, a luxury car was parked in front of the house. "Hannah, sorry. It looks like my brother's here too." "No, it's okay." The presence of his family members made me a bit more nervous, but I felt strong with Tom by my side. I was surprised to hear he had a brother. Tom rarely talked about his family, so I hadn't pried. "Tom, you have a brother?" "Yeah, a brother named Sean, 3 years older. He works at a brokerage firm and is incredibly successful. I'm really proud of him." It seemed like he genuinely admired his brother. We were invited in and sat across from his parents and brother with his wife. Tom carefully chose his words as he explained about our marriage and the pregnancy. In the midst of a tense atmosphere, Tom and I bowed our heads together. "Tom, you're gonna be a solid dad for Hannah and the baby," my father-in-law said with a gentle smile, softening the mood, and I felt relieved. "Tom, congrats. Hannah, if there's anything you don't understand, feel free to ask us." Tom's brother and his wife also celebrated our news. I could tell Tom was relieved too. But the relief was short-lived as the room froze over again with my mother-in-law's words. "Sean did have a wedding before making babies, you know. Sean did everything right, but you, Tom." Her words were low and cold. "I wasn't marrying Hannah just because we're having a baby. I've wanted to marry her from the start. You can say whatever you want. A shotgun wedding is just disgraceful. Yvonne, you shouldn't talk like that. It's called a blessing wedding these days. We got to hear about a marriage and a pregnancy at the same time. Isn't that happy?" My father-in-law chided my mother-in-law, but the room remained silent. However, the atmosphere was broken by the voice of Tom's brother's son, John. "Mom, can I play my game? You were just playing, weren't you? Come on, play over here with Mom." "Everyone, I'm so sorry." Tom's sister-in-law, Mirabelle, opened the door, entering the next room with her son, John. "Oh, right. Grandma got a new game for you, John," my mother-in-law said before leaving us to join John. From beyond the door, we could hear my mother-in-law's happy voice and John's joyful thanks. "Grandma, thank you. I love you." "Mother, thank you for everything, every single time. You even bought him a new toy last time." "It's okay, I'm doing it because I want to." Her voice was kind and different from the sharp tone she had used with us. Hearing her voice, I felt a bit relieved. Maybe my mother-in-law wasn't pleased with the circumstances of our marriage, but I felt that once our child was born, she would dote on them. I hoped we could build a good relationship moving forward. At that moment, I was optimistically thinking along those lines. After greeting both sets of parents, Tom and I quickly registered our marriage. About a year later, I safely gave birth to our daughter. We named her Natalie. "Hannah, thank you. I'm gonna work even harder at my job." "Thank you. I'll give all I've got to raise our first child too." "Let's raise her with all the love we can give." Tom, now a husband and dad, smiled tenderly and kissed both my daughter and me on the forehead. "Oh, how adorable. She's so cute." I could gaze at her forever without getting tired. My parents exclaimed as they held my daughter, their eyes crinkling with joy. "Tom's finally a dad now." "Yes. I've been moved the whole time. You know, Tom just won't let anyone else hold her. He's always holding her." "Hey, Hannah, don't spill the beans to your in-laws." "Tom, you're gonna have a hard time when Natalie gets a boyfriend," my mom teased, and he replied in a panic, "Hey, mother, please don't make me think about that yet." "Tom, when you came to ask for Hannah's hand, I was indeed shocked," my dad admitted. "I'm sorry," Tom responded sheepishly. "Oh, don't worry about it. That's how it is with fathers. Thanks for giving us such a cute granddaughter," my dad concluded, filling the room with warm laughter. Seeing my daughter so loved, my heart was enveloped in an unparalleled sense of happiness. When we took Natalie to see her paternal grandparents, my father-in-law joyously held her, saying, "This is my first time holding a baby girl." However, my mother-in-law simply said, "I see," without attempting to hold Natalie. Having seen her warm and gentle with John, I was surprised she didn't show the same enthusiasm for Natalie, expecting her to rejoice like my parents did. "When are Sean and his family coming?" She diverted her attention to the calendar, avoiding looking at Natalie. "Next Saturday, right. But now, let's enjoy the visit from Tom, Hannah, and Natalie." "Right. Hannah, you must be tired. I'll make some tea," my mother-in-law offered, heading to the kitchen. "Oh, thank you." Not holding Natalie, talking about Sean and John. Without my brother-in-law and his wife, my mother-in-law was like a different person compared to how she acted around Sean and John. I recalled our visits to Tom's parents' house before Natalie was born. When it was just Tom and me, we were never offered tea, but when the brother-in-law's family was there, delicious cakes and fine tea always seemed to be prepared. Mother-in-law seems to treat Sean and Tom differently. I felt a slight unease every time we visited. But Tom said nothing, and I kept telling myself I was probably overthinking it. We shouldn't assume we're not welcomed. After all, when we were working together, Tom used to say, "You shouldn't jump to conclusions at work." Despite it being the first time we took Natalie to visit, she wasn't held. I told myself, mother-in-law must be busy, and once Natalie is as big as John, she'll surely dote on her too. My unease remained as we continued to interact with my husband's family. "How about we all go to the church together on Christmas? Let's do fireworks on 4th of July. Suggested by my father-in-law and brother-in-law, we spent every Christmas and summer family gathering at my husband's home, buzzing with activity. Natalie was still small, needing breastfeeds and baby food, so I was practically glued to her the whole time. Tom was actively involved with Natalie and supported me, making our time at his family's home not feel burdensome. As usual, my mother-in-law was fully focused on her grandson John. So, I figured she preferred engaging with John, who was more interactive, over the still very young Natalie. Despite feeling odd about the different ways my mother-in-law treated her son and brother-in-law, nothing conclusive happened, so I continued our visits as usual. When Natalie was about 2 years old, my father-in-law suddenly passed away from a heart attack. The abrupt loss of my father-in-law, who had lovingly said he wanted to see Natalie in a school uniform, or even a wedding dress, hit us hard. Tom and his brother were visibly distressed, struggling to hold back tears. I felt it wasn't my place to cry when Tom was trying so hard to be strong, so I suppressed my tears. Amidst the grieving, my mother-in-law was the most devastated. After being informed of her husband's death by the doctor, she spent the whole night crying beside his cold body. She was too exhausted to serve as a pallbearer, and her brother-in-law was assigned to serve as a pallbearer. After the funeral, my mother-in-law ended up living alone in the house she had shared with my father-in-law. The day after the funeral, Tom's phone started ringing more frequently with calls from his mother. Tom dutifully answered every call, listening to her talk. The calls weren't just filled with complaints, she also asked for favors like buying things, mailing packages, or changing a light bulb, turning almost into daily tasks. Tom diligently responded to all these requests, and within just a month after the funeral, he looked utterly exhausted. Our quiet time together after Natalie went to bed was also interrupted by calls from his mother, reducing our conversations. One night around 10 p.m., as usual, Tom's phone rang. "Mom again?" my husband muttered, glancing at the caller ID on his phone. I snatched the phone from his hand and answered the call myself. "Hello, Mother, I'm sorry to interrupt. Tom is currently preparing documents for tomorrow's work. If it's all right with you, I can listen on his behalf." "Is that Hannah?" "Yes." I spent about 30 minutes on the phone with my mother-in-law, mostly listening to her complaints. It started with grievances about the neighbors and somehow extended to celebrities. Just when I thought she had run out of complaints, she reminisced about my father-in-law's life, how great a son my brother-in-law Sean was, and even shared her views on parenting. "Hannah, that must have been tough, sorry for making you listen to Mom's complaints." "It's okay. Actually, I'm sorry for making you look after your mom all by yourself until now. With preschool preparations settling down and Natalie's health stabilizing, I can take over. I think I'll have more time once preschool starts." "Hannah, thank you. I'm really glad I married you. But don't overdo it, okay?" "Thanks. I'll do what I can." "Tom, you're busy with work, right? And you've just been appointed leader of a major project. You said you wanted to do your best. I want to support you." "Thanks. Tomorrow I'll buy a tart from your favorite store, let's enjoy it together." So, I began handling the tasks and errands she requested, stepping in for my busy husband. By the way, Sean said they can't make it for the summer holidays this year, so you guys don't have to bother coming either. It's hard to travel in the heat with a child. This was mentioned when I delivered some items to her as usual. Understood. Until now, whenever there were major events like Christmas or the summer holidays, Sean's family and ours would always visit together. But this year, since Sean's family couldn't make it, we were told it wasn't necessary for us either. I was glad she considered Natalie's condition, but this wasn't a one-time conversation. Whenever Sean's family couldn't come, my mother-in-law would tell us it's okay not to visit. I thought perhaps she wanted some peace and quiet and didn't think much of it, considering it might be nice to have a break from visiting. One day, after buying items my mother-in-law requested, I went to her house. The items she asked for were often not easy to obtain, honestly quite a hassle. She'd want bread from a supermarket an hour's drive away or to pick up clothes from a department store. Requests like these came almost every 3 days. Today, she wanted baked goods from a bakery in the next county, so after dropping Natalie at preschool, I drove there to get them. It was challenging, but I couldn't imagine the pain of losing a loved one, and if I refused, the burden would fall on Tom, so I couldn't say no to my mother-in-law's requests. "Mother, I've bought what you asked for." "Oh, my. You're here already." "I'm coming." I called out as I entered the foyer, and she emerged from her usual room. As she came out, I caught a glimpse of 2 boxes wrapped in gift paper through the gap in the sliding door. That's wrapping paper from a toy store. A hunch crossed my mind. Natalie's birthday is in 2 weeks. Could it be that my mother-in-law prepared birthday gifts for Natalie? Maybe I was too quick to assume she only favored my brother-in-law Sean's family and John. It seems she does care for our daughter too. I was delighted by this realization. "Hannah, could you keep the Sunday after next free?" That day is the day before Natalie's birthday. At that moment, I was convinced my mother-in-law intended to celebrate our daughter's birthday. "Of course. We'll come over, all 3 of us." I was so happy, I recounted everything to Tom when he came home from work. "I think mother-in-law wants to celebrate Natalie. She must have gone out to buy the gifts herself." "So, Tom, we're good for the Sunday after next, right? Let's have a joint birthday party for Natalie and mother-in-law, whose birthdays are close." "Yeah, let's do that." Tom agreed after a moment's thought. "Oh, and she's asked for a favor that day too." "A favor?" On the day of our daughter's 4th birthday, we headed to my mother-in-law's house, which was serving as the venue for today's birthday party, carrying her favorite luxury Mont Blanc cake. Another favor from my mother-in-law was to buy this Mont Blanc from a cake shop an hour and a half's drive away. "I want the Mont Blanc from that shop. It's my birthday, after all, and I want to eat something delicious," she had said, pointing out a specific bakery. It was known for its long lines and popularity, with whole cakes impossible to reserve. Anticipating the crowd, we drove out early in the morning to purchase the Mont Blanc she requested. We saved the character cake for Natalie's actual birthday and decided to bring a cake I made myself for the birthday celebration at my mother-in-law's house. "We're here." "Thank you, Tom, Hannah." When we arrived at my husband's family home, my brother-in-law's family was already there, and my sister-in-law, Mirabelle, welcomed us. From the back of the house, we could hear the cheerful voices of my mother-in-law and John. "Sorry we're late." "It's okay, it must have been hard going all the way to that bakery to buy the Mont Blanc," Mirabelle whispered sympathetically, furrowing her brows. We set the side dishes we bought on the large table, and the joint birthday party for Natalie and my mother-in-law started. In the center of the table, we placed the Mont Blanc cake my mother-in-law had specified, bought early in the morning after lining up, and the homemade cake for Natalie. In the portrait hanging there, my father-in-law was smiling gently. "Happy birthday, Natalie and Mom!" My brother-in-law initiated the toast, and my mother-in-law responded with a soft smile, "Thank you very much." As the meal began, my mother-in-law sat next to John, doting on him attentively. "Do you want Grandma to get you some shrimps? It's tasty, isn't it?" Despite John being in the 3rd grade, my mother-in-law still talked to him in baby talk. My sister-in-law watched it with a wry smile. "Mom, John can eat by himself," my brother-in-law told her, to which she replied with a soft smile. Mirabelle watched this with a wry smile. "Oh, let me pamper him. Grandchildren are there to be spoiled." By the way, Sean was already studying 2 grades above by John's age. So, John must be smart like his dad. "Mom, really?" my brother-in-law said, blushing slightly, as laughter from him and his wife filled the room. Seeing my daughter fidgeting, I whispered, "What's up?" and she whispered back, "When should I give it?" In fact, for today's birthday party, Natalie had drawn a portrait for my mother-in-law. "Excuse me, mother-in-law. Natalie has something she wants to give you." "Go on, Natalie, give it to Grandma now." Natalie took out the drawing of my mother-in-law she had made from her backpack and shyly handed it over, saying, "Here you go." The drawing was rolled up and tied with a ribbon. It was unrolled to reveal a portrait of my mother-in-law with a heart drawn on it. It was Natalie's idea to make the gift, not prompted by me or my husband. She had drawn it herself the night before. "I hope Grandma likes it," she had said, showing me the portrait with pure excitement. "Grandma will definitely love it." I reassured her, patting her back. Everyone was smiling as they watched Natalie give her present to my mother-in-law. But the next moment, my mother-in-law's reaction left me in disbelief. "Can you just put it over there?" Instead of taking it or even looking at it, she just nodded towards a corner of the room with her chin. The atmosphere in the room immediately tensed up. There's something I wanted to give too," my mother-in-law said in a cajoling tone amidst the tense silence. But she seemed oblivious to the mood, quickly slipping into the next room. She returned with 2 boxes wrapped in the toy store's paper and handed them to my brother-in-law's son, John. I couldn't believe it. Wasn't that supposed to be a gift for Natalie? Even John looked perplexed, and Natalie stood there, about to cry. Silently, I went over to my daughter and hugged her tightly. "What's wrong? Look. It's a present from Grandma," my mother-in-law said to John in a sweet voice, but the air remained frozen. However, my husband broke the silence. "Mom, John's birthday is still far off. And what about Natalie? She thought of and prepared something for you all by herself. Not taking it, not even looking at it. What are you thinking?" It was the first time I'd ever heard my husband speak with such anger. "Oh." My mother-in-law scoffed, then began to unleash her pent-up feelings. "Why should I spend my money on your child? I only want to spend money on successful children. Sean was always brilliant, unlike you. I was always willing to spend any amount on him. Even now, I want to do everything I can for Sean and his son, John. But Tom, you've always been a fool, haven't you? Bad at studies and sports alike. I've always found it painful to spend money on such a fool. All the money and time I spent on you, I wished I could have spent on Sean. Spending money on smart kids and not on fools is the smart way to use money." The unease I felt towards my mother-in-law was indeed justified. I finally understood. Just her words alone had filled me with rage, but what she said next nearly pushed me over the edge. "Celebrating a fool's day is just a waste of time," she spat out disdainfully. What? Was she calling my daughter a fool and saying that celebrating such a fool's birthday was a waste? I couldn't believe it, especially since she had planned the birthday party herself. So, the birthday party today wasn't meant to be a joint celebration with my daughter but was solely for her own birthday celebration from the start. When I looked at my husband, I could see his body trembling slightly. He must be seething with anger, I thought as I looked at his face. But then, my husband did something that made me doubt my eyes. "Indeed," he suddenly said, agreeing with my mother-in-law's words with a smile. I was shocked by his words and behavior. Why wouldn't he say anything back after being insulted like that? Far from retaliating, he even agreed with my mother-in-law. However, what my husband did next almost made me burst out laughing. He suddenly started eating the luxury Mont Blanc cake from the famous shop, the whole cake my mother-in-law had been looking forward to the most. Scooping and eating, he quickly consumed half of it. While my husband was eating the cake, my mother-in-law was trembling and begging, "Stop. Please. Stop it," but my husband didn't stop eating. And then, my husband finished off the entire luxury Mont Blanc cake in no time. "Wait, Tom! That was supposed to be my cake. Why are you eating it? Sean, don't just stand there, say something to this idiot. I've been looking forward to eating this cake. This is too much." My mother-in-law pleaded with my brother-in-law and his wife, but they, along with their son John, looked at her as if she was something incomprehensible. Addressing my raging mother-in-law, my husband finally spoke up. "Celebrating a fool's day is a waste of time, right? Then, wouldn't it be a waste of time for some fool to eat this cake? So, I ate it for you. Ah, this whole birthday party was a waste of time if it was just for you." "What is this, speaking to the parent who raised you in that tone?" my mother-in-law retorted angrily to my husband's cold voice. I frowned, thinking how she dared to claim she raised him after treating him so differently. Raised? All you did was use me as an outlet for your stress. Whether someone in the neighborhood insulted you or something you wanted was sold out, you always waited for Sean to be away to lash out at me with your screams. You've always compared me to my brother, favoring him over me. But even though you discriminated between me and Sean, I never thought you'd do the same to my daughter. I agreed to this birthday party believing that, despite being a difficult mother to me, you'd be a good grandmother to Natalie. Become her grandmother? Don't joke with me. The daughter of a foolish son is bound to be a fool. Especially a child conceived out of wedlock. A fool's son and a foolish girl's child are bound to be fools. I don't want to be a grandmother to such a foolish child. I would never want to meet her. My mother-in-law's voice, yelling with spit flying, filled me with dismay. How could she say something so terrible? I didn't want my daughter to hear any more of my mother-in-law's words, so I took Natalie and John to the back room. John had an indescribable look on his face, but silently stroked my crying daughter's head gently. Sorry, you two, just stay here a bit longer, I said, closing the door behind me and stood beside my husband, confronting my mother-in-law. So, why have you been calling me recently? Making Hannah do phone calls and errands, but it was all meaningless stuff, wasn't it? You say you don't want to be involved with us, but your actions are all over the place. Menial tasks are for fools to do. It would be outrageous to bother Sean and his family with such things. Besides, you're only good for such tasks, so just do them quietly. She responded, but my husband remained calm, just giving her a cold look and muttered, So that's your true feelings? Of course. If Sean's family isn't coming, I don't even want to see the faces of you fools. I thought calling you would be a good interaction for John, being around someone lower than him. If the three of you aren't coming, I don't want to see your faces. My mother-in-law laughed arrogantly, crossing her arms, as I massaged my aching head. In the corner of my eye, I saw my brother-in-law and his wife speechless at my mother-in-law's words. All right, got it. Hannah, let's go home, my husband said, beginning to gather our things. Tom, I'm sorry, I had no idea it was like this, my brother-in-law apologized, but my husband shook his head. It's fine, Sean, it's not your fault. She's always been good at doing this without Dad or you noticing. My brother-in-law looked pale, possibly from guilt, but my husband gave him a kind smile. That's right, Sean. You don't need to apologize. You were always the smart one, but it's because he was the fool that it turned out this way, my mother-in-law added. Mom, no, I don't even want to call you that anymore. Mirabelle, let's go home. What are you saying, Sean? Mirabelle, don't just stand there, say something. My mother-in-law pleaded with my brother-in-law's wife, Mirabelle, but she simply stood up, ignoring her. I'll pack this up in containers for you to take home. It's such good food, it would taste awful eaten in this atmosphere. I also bought some things Natalie would like. Eat lots of it later, Mirabelle said, dividing the remaining food into 2 containers for me. From now on, we're completely ignoring my mother-in-law. What are you two saying? After everything I've given you, land, cars, money, you won't stand by me. I honestly believed you when you said you shared everything equally with Tom. It was undeniably a help with the household finances, so I accepted it. But it turns out that wasn't true. I'll return whatever I can. That way, we can sever ties with you. Sean, are you out of your mind? While my brother-in-law and mother-in-law were arguing, I softly spoke to my husband. Tom, I'm sorry I didn't know about any of this. If he had such a childhood, it must have been hard going back to a home with a mother who belittles him. Hannah, you don't have to apologize. She seemed to act normally around you, so I didn't see the need to worry you. My mom's favoritism continued even after I became an adult, but I liked Sean, and once I moved out, I could distance myself from her, so it didn't bother me. Tom. My husband had always thought of others, sacrificing his own feelings. I can only imagine how difficult that must have been for him. I should be the one apologizing for not telling you about my mom. My husband lowered his eyebrows apologetically, and I gently shook my head. My husband's eyes grew tight and he continued in a firm tone of voice. If she's going to treat our daughter the same way, that's a different story. I won't bring Natalie or Hannah here ever again. Let's go, Hannah. My brother-in-law must have said something quite strong, as my mother-in-law was left just crying into the living room table. We took the opportunity to leave the house along with my brother-in-law and his wife. John, thank you for always calming Natalie down. It's okay. On our way out, I thanked the kind boy who had been comforting my daughter all this time. Today's events must have also left a deep wound in John's heart. Having seen the true nature of a grandmother he always thought was kind. Though only in the 3rd grade, he's still a child but not without understanding. He must realize that being favored hurt Natalie. Yet, because John did nothing wrong, he seemed unsure of what to do next. I couldn't help but hope that this wouldn't leave a lasting scar on him. Once we got home and closed the front door, my daughter finally spoke up. Daddy, Mommy, does Grandma hate me because I'm stupid? She muttered with tears in her eyes, in a tiny voice. We quickly shook our heads in denial. No, Natalie, you're not stupid at all. Daddy and Mommy both love you very much. My husband said, embracing our daughter tightly. That's right, Natalie. You were born loved by everyone. You're turning 4 tomorrow, right? We've reserved your favorite cake, so let's go pick it up tomorrow. I said, hugging my beloved daughter and husband together. My favorite cake? Yes. With strawberries on it? It has strawberries. Yay! Natalie seemed initially shocked by the thought that her grandmother disliked her, but as my husband and I reassured her of our love, her smile gradually returned, and I felt relieved. I had wanted to end our relationship with my mother-in-law right after today's incident, but just a few days after the birthday party, an unexpected event occurred. The doorbell rang. Come on, Hannah. You're there, right? Can't you open up for me? Early in the morning, before 6 a.m., our doorbell rang incessantly, and as I sleepily checked the door monitor, my mother-in-law's figure appeared. What can I do for you? Open up, I'm telling you, come out quickly. Worried about causing a disturbance in the neighborhood, I headed to the door. However, determined not to let my daughter see my mother-in-law, I dealt with her outside, not letting her in. Finally, you came out. Listen. I can't get in touch with Sean and his family. I went to their house, but not only did they not let me in, they said something terrible to me. My mother-in-law, who had been turned away after pleading with my brother-in-law to retract his declaration of cutting ties, was told, "Don't come here again, John doesn't want to see you either." Hannah, won't you come with me? I want you to talk to Sean and his family for me. I'll even forgive that foolish son's treatment now. I was dumbfounded. After all the terrible things she said to my husband, after hurting my daughter, she had the nerve to ask for my help. I took a deep breath and addressed her. You don't know how wonderful Tom is. He's indispensable at his company. Not only he is kind and reliable, but he's also smart, cares for his coworkers and they like him, too. Hannah, what are you talking about all of a sudden? Forget about that, just talk to Sean and... Tom is very important to me too. I don't want to listen to someone who insults and troubles him like that. What? I've hated every call and request from you. I couldn't care less about celebrity gossip, and running errands for you, even though there's nothing wrong with your legs, was a huge burden. But because you're Tom's parent and I thought you were struggling after losing your husband, I tried to be there for you. But not anymore. I don't want to talk to someone who insults my daughter, my husband, and me. Could you please leave? You woman! Don't get ahead of yourself. Who do you think you're talking to? Just as I was about to retort that she was just a nuisance to the neighborhood, the front door clicked open. What are you doing here? It was my husband. He had taken the day off for our move, so he was home today. Actually, after the birthday party incident, we decided to move somewhere completely free from my mother-in-law's interference. We had been preparing for the move over the last few days. My husband stood in front of me, facing my mother-in-law. Oh, you. You're a bringer of misfortune. Because of you, Sean and the others have declared me isolated. What are you going to do about it? Well, then don't involve yourself with a bringer of misfortune. Hannah, come inside. I'm locking the door, my husband said as he pulled me inside and locked the front door. Who do you think allowed you to live up to this point? You idiot! Open up! My mother-in-law banged on the door, causing a commotion in front of the apartment. Her ranting escalated to dangerous levels, and just as I was about to call the police, I heard the sound of a patrol car's siren in the distance. The sound grew louder until it stopped very close by, followed by the voices of unfamiliar men and my screaming mother-in-law. She was causing such a disturbance that I could hear them trying to restrain her and talk about taking her away. When my mother-in-law's voice finally faded, the intercom rang again. I thanked and apologized to the police officer who rang the bell, and answered their questions about my relationship with my mother-in-law as best as I could. After that, my husband and I moved. Naturally, we didn't tell her our new address, successfully cutting ties with her. My brother-in-law and his wife returned the car and the same amount of money they received as gifts and moved after returning the land. They didn't tell her the new address when they moved, saying this should be returned, and it was the last time they communicated before changing their phone numbers. As a result, it seems they were also able to cut ties with her. Left alone, my mother-in-law finally sought help from her siblings. However, no one was pleased to suddenly take care of an estranged elderly person. They were all close in age to my mother-in-law and struggling with their own lives. She tried to barge in and demand care, even exploiting her siblings' daughters-in-law and grandchildren, leading to threats of being sent to a home. Yet, my mother-in-law didn't change her attitude, insisting on staying in a luxury nursing home with abundant services. She could afford such demands because she was the eldest daughter. She inherited a considerable sum from her deceased parents, adding to the inheritance from my father-in-law. Despite looking down on everyone but Sean as fools, she hated spending money and pressured her siblings, saying, "You're my younger brother and sister, you should take care of me." Eventually, she was admitted to the luxury nursing home she wanted. But to the residents there, who could afford such a place, my mother-in-law was an extremely unpleasant woman to deal with. Eventually, other residents avoided her and she became a source of stress for the staff. Complaining about every little thing and no one cared for her, marked as a troublemaker. But her tyrannical behavior ended quickly. Ignored by everyone, without family, siblings, or relatives coming to see her, my mother-in-law's dementia progressed rapidly. She couldn't even remember who she was or where she was, making her, in a way, easier to manage. Afterwards, my mother-in-law's siblings changed the payment method for her care not to burden themselves, but to withdraw from my mother-in-law's assets. It seems my mother-in-law is living a happy life in the paid nursing home as long as her assets last. Today, she can't even remember Sean, whom she once cherished, spending her days just lying in bed. As for my husband, once the tie with his mother was completely severed, he was promoted at work. Freed from the curse of being the incapable, stupid man by his mother, his complexion brightened noticeably. Full of motivation and with his natural kindness, he led his team to better achievements by working together. The connection with his mother must have been a tremendous curse for him. Seeing my husband become happier gave me great relief. And now, there's a baby in my belly. Natalie, you're going to be a big sister soon. Yeah, I'm excited. All right, Daddy will work even harder. You're already doing enough, just don't overdo it. Considering our growing family, we moved to a slightly larger apartment for our second move. Since the birthday party incident, our relationship with Sean's family has deepened. I thought they might sever ties with us too, but to my husband, Sean remains an important brother, and now, without their mother, they can face each other directly. John also became a big brother, maintaining a good relationship with Natalie. Once Mirabelle and I have settled down after our deliveries, we're planning a big family trip.